speaking of Super Tansky, I have some drama content. I don't usually cover drama content on this channel, but I thought I would dabble in some drama content because hopefully it might get some views. I don't know. Fingers crossed that at some point I'll be able to put out some content that will go viral eventually. But anyway, we actually have drama content to cover, and the rabbit hole is incredibly fucking deep. So, who here in chat is well aware of the Christmas pop sensation Lad Baby? Because it's Christmas time, and they are an ever-present they're ever present within Christmas lore within the UK. I mean, I guess we have to go back even further for this one, in that essentially for an incredibly long time, in the UK, with the music charts, there has always been this kind of weird reverence to the idea of someone getting the Christmas #1 single. For a very long time, it was just Christmas songs or whatever, or different pop songs. And then the X Factor kind of took over, and then the X Factor became, they got the #1 single every year up until someone who was very angry with it decided to try and get Rage Against the Machine to Christmas #1, which they did. But in recent years, there has been this new artist called Lad Baby. They are aiming for a 4th successive Christmas #1. Now, what they do is they get celebrities to try and get involved to release a charity single, usually themed around sausage rolls for some absurd reason, right? They used to have this kind of sausage roll themed song that they release. Like last year, it was in conjunction with Elton John and Ed Sheeran, I think it was, they got us collaboration. This year, it's Martin Lewis of all people. And people are kind of sick of them. I find Lad Baby incredibly irritating. First of all, because, I don't like Christmas music anyway. I think that, what they're doing, really, really and truly, what these people are doing is trying to gain some kind of media career. Like, I hate to do the obvious thing where I try and castigate people who engage in charitable donations for wanting to gain themselves some level of clout, because usually I would say that the ends kind of justify the means at the end of the day. If they get some clout, then a lot of the time, whatever. But as long as the money is going to charity, then that's fine. There's 2 problems to this. The first problem is that he's a fucking Tory, right? The people in Lad Baby are Tories, and they've continually used their charity single to fund the Trussell Trust. I think over the last 4 years, I think it's £305,000 they've raised for the Trussell Trust, which is nothing to sneer at. But, considering that I think they've sold about, 500,000 singles at 99p each, they're taking a big cut of that, which I'll come on to later. But it just, again, it's literally, as Mushroom Andy in chat points out, it's like the spinning the wheel of poverty on Good Morning Britain, or the competitions that you see about people getting to have their bills paid for a year, right? It's kind of essentially grifting off of the cost of living crisis, even if it is sort of like mostly for a good cause, right? The fact that they use it as a marketing ploy, and despite the fact that they continually support the Conservative Party, despite the fact that all of these food banks need to be used and the single needs to be released in the first place to fund the Trussell Trust, is because of the macroeconomic policy that continues being pursued by the Conservative Party that they support, right? They've continually said that they support the government and they believe the government will do the right thing, despite the fact that we literally, for years and years and years and years, we've seen the complete opposite, as the number of food banks has kind of risen exponentially within that time. So I do not like Lad Baby. I don't like I don't like how smug they are. I don't like how grifty they are. I don't like the fact that they're Tories, and I think their music is irritating. But I guess at the end of the day, at least some money's been raised to the Trussell Trust. But we now have another challenger. Just like the Rage Against the Machine #1 single challenged the X Factor for their kind of Christmas #1 hegemony, for the last few years, in the time in which Lad Baby of getting continuous Christmas #1s, a sweary man from Basildon who does comedy music, I guess, and his comedy music outfit is called Cunt and the Gang, spelt with a K. Not monetizing this segment, am I? Which I wanted to go for virality. I guess I'll have to censor whenever I say the word that I just said then, or whatever. Fuck it. No, this is not getting monetized. I'm just using it for clout. It's called Cunt and the Gang. Has every single year released an anti-Tory single to try and beat Lad Babies. Did a couple of singles about Boris Johnson being a cunt, which did pretty well. Like, it's under the banner of The Cunts, like his punk band side project or whatever, which is fine. It's all in good fun or whatever. Although, to be fair, I'm not sure how much of it's even being raised for charity. I'm not sure. But even so, they were trying to challenge the #1 hegemony of Lad Baby at the top of the charts. And he continues, and he has previously engaged in reasonable criticism of Lad Baby as being grifters. So let's just watch this particular video for starters.
We rely on downloads for the charity and for the song. So if you can...
It's also the best way to donate to the charity as well.
Yeah.
Hold on. What? Really? Can you repeat that for me?
It's also the best way to donate to the charity as well.
Yeah.
Oh, so it's better for the charity for people to download your song than to donate directly?
Yeah.
Why is your body language so shifty then?
It's also the best way to donate to the charity as well.
Yeah.
If you donate
99p.
99p, it goes to the charity, 100% of the profits.
Yeah.
But you never say how much of that 99p is profits and what the costs are. Martin Lewis, can you tell us?
And it's going to get this as high up in the charts as possible.
Oh, so that's what it's really all about. You want to keep your profile up so you can keep signing your lucrative sponsorship deals and flogging all your sausage roll themed tat off the back of charity. If you want to help stop this lying Tory sausage roll grifter, here's what to do. Go to theconservatives.info and there's all the links there to download and stream a song called... It's currently #3 in the iTunes chart. You know what to do.
Because his criticisms there are pretty salient, right? In the, they're not donating 100% of the proceeds. They're donating 100% of the profits, right? So, they're not saying how much of what they're selling as profit is quite clearly said there. And that's a reasonable criticism, right? But the problem is that if that is what's grift, if that's necessarily grifting, then why is you also using this situation to try and grift, to try and sell charities, sell a single when you're not even going to charity? How is that also not grifting as well? Like, it's a pretty grey area. Although at least Cunt and the gang will at least recognise that the issue that has caused Lad Baby's fame is the fact that people keep electing the fucking Tories. Now, there is lots of criticism to be made, but whatever. At the end of the day, it's all a bit of fun. But as long as you're anti-Tory, I guess I'm probably on your side on this one. However, the plot does indeed thicken. So, if we cast our eyes back, or cast our minds back, was it 2012? It might have been 2012, in which people were incredibly tired of the X Factor doing what Lad Baby did, where they would continue to get the Christmas #1 every year, right? The person who organised the campaign to get Rage Against the Machine to #1 to try and beat the X Factor, just sort out my sound there, was a guy called John Mortar. Now, I think he was like a kind of washed up radio DJ, but whatever. Again, this was also a bit of fun. And also Rage Against the Machine donated a huge amount of money to Shelter in the wake of getting a load of sales off of the back of this campaign, right? You'll never believe what's happened. Cunt and the gang have gotten in touch with Mr. John Mortar to try and use his knowledge of the Christmas #1 race to try and help them get to Christmas #1. So here we see. Here are where things get interesting. If anyone can stop millionaire sausage roll charity Tory, Lad Baby and the media whitewash, it's Mr. Rage Against the Machine, and we've just signed him up. Good to have you on board at John Mortar, and there you can see where he tweeted at them and then asked them to DM or whatever, right? Now, it turns out this Mr. John Mortar person is an interesting figure. It's an interesting guy, right? And he actually runs an account on Twitter which is at RATM, despite the fact that at RATM official is the Rage Against the Machine actual Twitter account. Yet he is using the brand name of Rage Against the Machine to try and sell up, like use it for kind of activist purposes or whatever. So, for example, they did a post recently about in June 25th about Roe versus Wade. At the last election, they did like as there was that particular what looks like a Rage Against the Machine account, but is just John Mortar behind the scenes. Gave out a tactical voting guide, one of the very same tactical voting guides that were telling people to vote Lib Dem in constituencies where you should have really voted Labour. Because it turns out, right? Turns out that John Mortar is a fucking agrocentrist. He's a fucking anti-Corbyn person. And he also has this whole bloody extended universe of different accounts that he is the admin of, right? So here is an individual account that he created to try and follow the cunt's Christmas stuff, right? So that's what this is his account to try and boost getting Fuck the Tories to Christmas #1, which is, as I mentioned before, the name of the single for Cunt and the Gang. Right, so this is something he's using as well to promote. And joined August 2014, so he had an existing account that he's now changed the name of. Maybe this was the original Rage Against the Machine account. I don't know. Because you can see that he knew it's definitely him because it retweeted his own information. This is the original Rage Twitter account with the band's full blessing, citation needed, which again is run by John Mortar. You can't see that, but for fuck's sake, there you go. Rage Against the Machine did retweet that. I'm still logged into Magic Arena. Let's quit that. So you can see there that they retweeted him again. So it's just, again, him in control of this particular account. Here's another one called Anyone But Lad Baby for Christmas #1. Retweeting John Mortar again. Literally, he's fucking everywhere. And he's even got a thing called Gammon Magazine. Which, can you guess who they retweeted? It's John Mortar again, trying to boost his own profile. So it's like wheels within wheels of different grifters trying to use this particular situation again to boost their own profile, right? So the same dude retweeting himself 12 times. Oh, it's even funnier because if I go back to my bookmarks, let's find it out. At one point he was replying to himself. Like he was replying to himself with the Gammon Magazine thing. In another post from the cunt's Christmas account. So he kept replying to himself, having conversations between his own accounts, which I think is incredibly fucking funny. But turns out, right, is that Mr. John Mortar is friends with a political commentator that had been mentioned previously in the chat. So he's friends with Supertansky. And he used his connections, having been recruited by Cunt and the Gang to try and boost the profile of their Christmas single to try and beat Lad Baby. So here's the thing. This is precisely why all they get called left gammon and cultists, because yeah, he hates the Corbynistas, etc., etc. An opinion is spoken vaguely against their dearest leader and all hell breaks loose amongst the shared brain cell. My foot moves, they furiously type, it's entertaining if nothing else. A good friend of mine is a well-known anti-Tory vlogger, claimed that those still clinging onto Corbyn's cult are more politically naive and annoying than Tories. She was clearly bang on the money. Look at the state of this lot, more salt than Farage's pint glass. Despite the fact that this is just a guy he's politically ignorant as well. So he's not made any kind of actual policy prescriptions. Just again, it's all the same. It's all the same. Again, the dear leader stuff is actually how they believe about Starmer. You cannot criticise the current Labour leadership because that makes you a quote unquote Tory enabler, etc., etc. Right? He literally applies to himself. He can't say anything. Well, yeah, exactly. He does. So this person has. I think this is a correct assumption. This person is saying that they don't blame Cunt of the Gang for getting experienced PR on board to help, but it is a shame that John Mortar seems to be picking back off them to fight his personal vendettas against those of us who supported Jeremy Corbyn, which demoralises the fans of Cunt and the Gang, which I am. I think Cunt and the Gang make very funny content, but his connections to Supertansky mean that we now have a Supertansky remix of the Fuck the Tory single. So this was one shared by the John Mortar account. You want another mix? You got it. How about a guest vocal from the legendary Tory bother herself, Supertansky, plus it's a banger of a mix too. Now, I'm gonna anger the leftoids a lot by saying I don't massively hate Supertansky or anything. Like, sure, I disagree with her politics. All her anti-Corbyn stuff has been incredibly cringe or whatever. But she voted for Corbyn, and she isn't like a turf or anything, so I give her a pass on a lot of stuff. But when they criticize Corbynites, it's like they're talking about themselves. Well, yeah, true. It's a lot of it is in general projection. But Supertansky got herself into a bit of drama a few months ago. I forget when it was, when people dug up tweets of hers saying that Israel did 9/11, which is an incredible claim. Like, what would Mossad have to gain from that by attacking their closest ally on the geopolitical stage? I don't know. She kind of walked it all off, said some weird stuff about being part of the Corbyn cult, so that's why she said anti-Semitic stuff. It was this whole thing. I was going to cover it as drama content, but then I couldn't be bothered. But people, the leftoids naturally on Twitter in the replies started pointing this out, saying, well, isn't it bad PR to get people who think that Israel did 9/11 on board? And turns out this has completely rattled Mr. John Mortar, again, because he is an agrocentrist who doesn't like the Corbynites, for example, saying things such as, watch out, the Corbynite let's keep the Tories in power beard clipping gang are rattled, because one of the pages that he did, there might be my bookmarks, one of the pages that he did for quote-unquote Gammon magazine was about left gammon, like a picture of Len McCluskey on the front. Let me fucking find it. It must be in my bookmarks somewhere. Oh yeah, here he is. Dave, can you grab the Tory enablers kryptonite for us? And then this incredibly cringe edit of Keir Starmer with the sunglasses and the joint. So he's literally just a proper Starmerite. Let me find it. Might have to search left gammon on Twitter. I think. I didn't want to have to edit this. Well, I guess I'm going to have to. This is the one. A Gammon magazine lacks self-awareness, centrist extremes. Well, true. And this is what they've done. Here's a one-off special limited edition saying it's got Len McCluskey on the front for some reason. Sir Keir, yes, he may be more relaxable than Corbyn. Yes, he's got the highest leadership rating for any Labour leader since 2010. But let's help the Sun and the Daily Mail smear him anyway and call him Keith, because you know how centrists on Twitter get angry when you say Keith, which I find incredibly amusing. When it's nothing it's deadly levels of cringe. You're like, it's proper like weapons grade cringe. But the issue that leftoids have with Keir isn't that he's for some reason electable, and it's not because he's not Corbyn. Like, for some reason, I think a lot of centrists believe that the Corbynist stuff is some kind of cult of personality, rather than a bunch of people who want to have policies with positive utility put into government, right? We support an economic program, and it's not just that Keir Starmer is going away from that particular program, but it's also the fact that he said he would continue that program and then also lied about it and is now purging leftoids from the party, right? I don't believe like the centrists just can't even see that kind of stuff. Like, and you can understand how politically ignorant they are when they say things like anyone that isn't over on the far left must be a Tory, despite the fact that social democracy that Corbyn was proposing is just centre-left ideology. And they don't understand the, taking an explicitly monetarist fiscal policy stance, an imperialist foreign policy stance, and a reactionary social policy stance just makes you a Tory, right? Like, there is it's not, politics isn't like blue team versus red team, right? If you want team sports, go and watch the World Cup or watch the reruns of the World Cup. Here over in adult land, right, we like dealing with the effective utility of policy and wanting to be able to put forward some kind of ideological position. Centrist also fellatio weekly. Well, yeah, exactly, Mushroom Andy. And the fact they keep calling everyone Tory enablers is just the worst thing. Because, I mean, the only people who are enabling the Tories are people who continue to give credence to conservative narratives about macroeconomic policy, for example, or on reactionary social policy. That's Tory enabling, right? Just because the people who are putting forward the policy are people who wear red rosettes, that doesn't make the policy not neoliberal. It doesn't make it not Tory, right? That's why people get called red Tories, because, again, I would like to point out as well, I would like to point out as well, right, that there is I think a lot of leftists would be incredibly happy with some kind of compromise, right? We don't have to do all of the nationalizations, for example, but as long as we have like cooperative funds or a social care service or additional council housing, whilst there being some kind of heterodox ideological position within the Labour Party, and a unity platform where everyone's views are taken into account and then votes are had on a democratic principle, and individual candidates weren't being thrown out, we would happily just follow that principle, right? Have a compromise position and put party unity over in factional infighting. I think a lot of leftoids would be very happy with that. But unfortunately, the leftist, the Labour Party infighting is continuing, specifically because Keir Starmer wants to engage in it. That's why Labour HQ continue expelling members. It's why they continue with people from shortlists over for no fucking reason, right? There is a compromise position that everyone would be able to get on board with, but they just refuse to do it, and it drives me around the absolute bend. But anyway, so that's Mr. John Mortar. He is an interesting character. And it doesn't stop there. It does not stop at the John Mortar Supertansky internal drama. Oh, no. Supertansky is involved in this segment. So there is one political commentator who has to get involved, right? Whether he wants to or not. In this situation, it appears he didn't want to get involved, but he just gets dragged into it anyway because all the agrocentrists on Twitter have Owen Jones derangement syndrome. Because of course, right? Owen Jones tweeted this out. There seems to be a strong correlation between having really weak, middle-of-the-road milquetoast political opinions and thinking that swearing a lot is edgy. As far as I can tell, this stems from a desire to be seen as radical, but without having the political opinions to back that up, so instead relying on saying cunt a lot as well as various cringeworthy compound swear words to compensate for it. I mean, that is true. The agrocentrists really... There is a massive correlation between agrocentrists and people who turn compound nouns into insults like wank puffin and cockwomble, all that kind of stuff. And this is just a tweet that he sent out into the open. No one was even mentioned or quote tweeted. And this does technically apply, I guess, to Supertansky. Like, I don't know her own. I've actually never seen her make political prescriptions, so I couldn't even tell, right? But it's very clear this can hardly be seen to be specifically about Supertansky, specifically, right? It could also this particular tweet clearly describes a lot of people on the centre, the kind of hashtag FBPE types, right? This clearly is far more pervasive than just a single political commentator on TikTok. But unfortunately, Owen Jones seemed to have kicked the hornet's nest and say that this is apparently bullying and a misogynist pile-on because of him saying that it's cringe when you say wank puffin. Like, that's literally it. And he kept people putting like homophobia in the replies. People comparing him to like a leftist Taron Grimes or I'm not going to repeat the homophobic comments here because they're pretty awful. And they think that it's somehow deliberately directed at Supertansky. I don't even what the fuck is going on. Literally, let me try and find. Sorry, I'm gonna have to. You have to bear with us while I try and find the thread now. They must have been influencing Lonerbox on Owen Jones derangement. Has Lonerbox got Owen Jones derangement syndrome? Oh no, Lonerbox, really? Oh, his content's really good. I can't believe he would do. You're gonna have to send me the link for the Owen Jones derangement syndrome, and they're gonna have to have a look at it. Where is it? So here's the original tweet, right? This explains the vicious pile-on. Owen Jones again. I mean, actually, no, it was because internet, like, leftoid shitposters found the John Mortar stuff. In fact, like, Owen Jones was really fucking late to the party with the lefty Twitter pile-on in about the Christmas single, right? Like, again, I think a lot of the backlash was probably a little bit OTT, whatever. I don't really... I care more about, the kind of the griftathon that's kind of behind this. But it's peak Owen Jones derangement syndrome. That pylon happens. Owen Jones does a comment that's completely unrelated. It's nothing to do with the Christmas single stuff. And for some reason, that she thinks that he must be the person who's behind it, even though there's just nothing to say that he did. For example, I've not read this thread, so we're going to enjoy this together for the very first time. I didn't read about poverty at Oxford. I lived it. You can afford another Tory team. Those I speak to can't. Yeah, another Tory term will be run by Keir Starmer with his monetarist fiscal policy. Like, I'm sorry, but this isn't even about you, right? Every outburst of hundreds of troll comments are inevitably linked to him. There's no evidence for any of this, Supertansky, so okay, I guess. I don't see the link between his comment that wasn't even directed at you or even about you, could somehow trace back a bunch of comments that some were funny, some were memey, and some were probably over the line or whatever, about a non-charity single that you're doing in relationship with some other comedy band that people thought was cringy, or how any of this is even linked, right? I've not watched the Keir Starmer Stafford Talk Imagination scene, so I'll have to check that out. And then, like, literally, she then quote tweets, or screenshots this thing, and then just says, "Oh, he can't help himself." What? He can't help defending himself against unwarranted claims that he caused a pylon that he didn't cause? Makes no sense. This doesn't make any sense. Yeah, exactly. The responses to the cunts video came in well before Owen commented on it, but it was mentioned by the guy running the accounts and thus responded hours later, followed by the post you have in your comment above. Oh, shit! We're happy with... So the Not Lad Baby account that's run by John Mortar tweeted out saying that they're happy with Starmer, and then just mentioned Owen Jones apropos of nothing, because, again, it's another incredibly sad... a person who is infected with the very, very debilitating illness that's known as Owen Jones derangement syndrome. And quoted it from a different account under that he uses in his name. It's identical. We await with inevitable with bated breath. They said the same quote from two different accounts, both run by John Mortar, because he just has incurable OJDS. And then deleted the tweets after Owen Jones said he doesn't know who he is. And this all happened after the pylon happened. Someone saying he's a Tory in socialist clothing. What? I told you the rabbit hole went super fucking deep. And then there's this guy called Steve, who... under all of the replies under the original Cunt Christmas single thing involving Supertansky, just responded to everyone saying, "You're a white male." He was literally what did they call the person? Did they call him AIDS Skrillex? It's a really mean comment, but like, let me have a look. I'm trying to find all of these replies that he did to the original Christmas single post. Oh no, he's. I'm not going to find it by looking through the replies because he's just fucking everywhere. Please tell me I've blocked these people. Good. Right. But yeah, he kept responding to every comment saying, "You're a white male." I'm like, what does that have to do with anything? That doesn't have anything to do with anything. This is not a discussion around sex and or gender and or race. So what does people being white and or male have to do with anything in regards to a Christmas single about the Conservative Party? Like, he is this Steve person is literally like the kind of poster child for the kind of people that get made up about in like these weird comedy skits about woke people or the politically incorrect bunch or whatever. Like, because the kind of person who would just respond, "You're a white male" to anything, right? Incredibly cringe. They don't do our movement any good service or whatever. Owen Jones would seem to be happy with successive Tory governments until his version of politics, and his version only, is elected. Not true. Politics is compromise. Fighting on the left only supports the Tories. He chooses to ignore this to self-promote his ego, despite the fact that literally this is like 9 videos that he's put out, all attacking the Tories and right-wingers specifically. He just doesn't agree that Labour should be monetarists and neoliberals. I can't believe that even just like a basic desire to see the Labour Party support Labour values is seen as being Tory enabling by engaging in any internal criticism. Like, it's yeah. So that we probably should leave that there unless there's anything else that I can use to try and extrapolate on this point. I don't know. Either way, it's all been an incredibly silly saga that we've had to engage in, where it starts off with Lad Baby, and then we end up with Owen Jones being called a misogynist, and then getting taunted with homophobic abuse. So yeah, isn't internet drama fun? And if you're enjoying the internet drama, but would also in future to see proper political analysis, which I will do, I promise, because I don't like doing drama content, but this one was too funny to pass up, and it was specifically related to a bunch of the stuff I talk about within British politics, so I thought it was worth covering. You can like and subscribe. You can click the bell because it'll notify you when I go live on YouTube. And you can also become a member on YouTube for 99p. It's cheaper than a can of Red Stripe. There is literally no reason for you not to do so. Or you can subscribe on Twitch or click the donate box in my description if you want to be able to support me in that way, which again is never expected but is always appreciated.